Hey, welcome into the REVO Church podcast. I'm Jame. I'm the host. And, well, hey, we got a good one today. I'm joined by the man, the tattooed myth, the legend, the guy that I was told had the voice of an angel.
No.
I was told from the Good Friday service, who was that tattooed muscular man on stage?
Wow. All right.
And I said, wow, his name's Steve. And they said, you know what? He has the voice of an angel. And I said, oh, man, I can't wait to tell him that on podcast so that the world can see his interaction. Man, I'm joined by Steve. If you don't know him, he's the worship leader at Walkertown. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Being told that you have the voice of an angel, does that make you like tear up a little inside?
I'm just glad that I can have that effect on people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, God gave me a voice, and I'm just glad that I get to use it for Him. So if it helps people get closer to Him and help them worship more and their hearts in worship, then that's a win.
That's a win.
Yep.
They told me that, and I'm like, man, I can't wait to share with him because I love to be able to bless people, and so I was sitting down, and I like to always like talk up the person that's sitting beside me. I was like, you know what, I didn't have to talk you up. You were talked up, and I just get to share that. But hey, today I asked you on this podcast because here's what I want to do. Man, our testimony is powerful. We are told all throughout Scripture that there's a lot of things that can be debated. There's a lot of things like people can debate Scripture until you're blue in the face. I can think one thing, you can think another thing. And though we can both in our minds be laying out what we believe is true, there can always be some debate. Mm-hmm. But one thing that there is no debate is our story, our testimony. Yeah. When we see Jesus healing the blind man, and then the Pharisees coming to the blind man and being like, how did it happen? And he's like, I was blind. Jesus touched my eyes, and now I see. Yep. There's no debate on that. There's no way we can go against that. And so, man, I asked you on here because I would love for you to be able to tell your story of life change. So set the stage for us. When we're talking story of life change, I think the most important thing is Jesus, obviously.
Right.
But
hold on. So this isn't about my fantasy football outlook for 2025?
Fantasy football outlook for 2025.
Okay.
Though, yeah, you can get rid of the laptop. Okay. I know you had notes prepped.
Yep, I did.
Genty's going 101. Travis Hunter's a bust. But that's not this podcast. That's the next. That's for the bonus episode.
Got it.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. But we're talking about our testimony, and man, paint us a picture first of Steve before he knew Jesus.
Oh boy. So I was born and raised Catholic.
Yeah.
From third grade until I graduated high school. I was in Catholic schools. Dressed the part all day. Church every Sunday. Basically grew up in the Catholic Church. Got married to my high school sweetheart. Not out of high school, but shortly after she graduated from college. Yeah. And just slowly fell away from church, like so many of us do. My parents did everything right. Church every Sunday, like I said, plenty of gatherings, plenty of community at the church, and just slowly fell away, like so many of us do. Ended up getting married, like I said, and just kind of going through the motions. Going to church when I needed something. Going to church if she needed something. I basically slowly let, she was a believer, but, when she needed to be. Yeah. So many times people are so quick to blame God for when things go wrong, and it was very easy for us to, hey, something went wrong in our life. So, hey, we got to go to church this week. And
we got to make it up.
Got to make amends.
Got to
go talk to God about what's going on in my life and why it's not right.
Yeah.
He's got to fix this.
He's got to answer.
He's got to fix this. Yeah. But was Jesus living in my heart? No. No, that's the way that went. And, that ended, as you can imagine, poorly, ended in divorce. I wasn't the husband that I needed to be for her. That's for sure. I wasn't leading spiritually in any way, any aspect. She ended up being unfaithful, and I ended up falling into not a deep depression, but it was a bad couple of months, man. I found myself at the bar all the time, drinking way too much, just relying on relying on things that are not of God.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I think that, I think that's something that a lot of people end up doing before they find Jesus, is they start to look for things that can hopefully satisfy them, or maybe things that will help pacify them. Maybe it's not satisfying, but maybe it's something that just helps them, just make it through the next day.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about that. What were some things before you met Jesus that you were trying to do to, satisfy your soul, or things that you were doing that, you were like, man, this will give me some happiness, or this will help me get through this moment? You said, your wife was unfaithful and you started hitting bars. Like, was that the only thing you were doing? Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
It wasn't, it's not that I was doing anything awful in particular. I found myself like so many other men in front of, and it wasn't really even a computer at the time, but I found myself not addicted to, but struggling with the P word, man.
Yeah.
And that is, it's such an easy trap to fall into. It's even worse now in 2025 compared to 2003. And I got to tell you, that was one of the struggles. The drinking was one of the struggles. I was trying to be accepted. I had been rejected in so many ways. So I was trying to do anything that I could to try to fill that hole, but it wasn't with anything with God. It was a lot of work, a lot of working on myself. I wasn't filling the holes in my life with Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of men have struggled with. I think, seeking that gratification, especially, it's so easy, especially now. You mentioned it now. Like, if you go on like Instagram, or if you're on, I'm not on the TikTok, but if you're on the TikTok,
it's everywhere.
The TikTok. It's everywhere. There's videos everywhere. There's just all these inappropriate things, man. I believe that Satan is attacking, and I believe he uses that to attack us. And so, and he disguises it so well, as making you think that it's going to give you that gratification.
Yep.
But now, so walk us through this next little stage. So life pre-Jesus, you have Steve that grew up in the Catholic Church.
Yep.
He got married, but was not following Jesus. His marriage ended up falling apart. He is going to bars. He's finding validation in videos and in magazines and all these things. You have that, Steve. So now walk us through, what was the next step after that? Some pivotal moments that helped you move from Steve, the guy that knew about Jesus, to now Steve, the guy that is talking about, well, man, God bless me, and I just want people to be able to worship Jesus through the blessings he's given me.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm one of those, at least so many times you ask people to tell their story and their testimony, and they have the pivotal moment.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I don't have the pivotal moment that so many people can say, oh, this was it. Like I had cancer in 2014. That wasn't even it. You would think like, this is the moment. Like, hey, you probably are going to die in 4 months if you didn't feel that lump in your neck.
Yeah.
And that wasn't it for me. I think for me, it was God just slowly working, slowly, you know what I'm saying? I've used this metaphor numerous times. Like, our life is just one big puzzle, right? And God just throws all these pieces at us, and he keeps the box.
That's such a good analogy.
And sometimes we don't even have all the pieces.
Yeah.
The pieces end up falling into play when he wants them to in his time. And for me, it was meeting Naomi. Like Naomi she saved my life, man. Through God saved Jesus saved my life by using Naomi as that tool. And I've used this numerous times with people. If it wasn't for her, man, I don't know where I'd be. We met, and she was a Christian, and she had her own issues.
Yeah.
She had her own issues. A big part of our life was we lived in New York in 2008, and by 2015, we had lived in 8 different homes in 5 different states.
Wow.
Like, that's That's crazy, man.
That's
that
intense.
is nutty. You want to talk about like a pivotal moment? Well, we were hoping we'd have a pivotal moment when we moved to Ohio, but we went to church twice in 3 years. We were hoping that pivotal moment would be in Florida, and we found ourselves in a mega church with no community, with 1,000 people per service. And then we moved to South Carolina, and there were 2 churches, but one had good worship, didn't like the preaching. One had good preaching. The worship was so what's the word I'm looking for, Jamie? Like they were writing all their self-focused.
Yeah.
They had like 8 different albums they released in the 2 years that we lived in South Carolina. I was like, this is crazy. Like, why are we even coming here? But it was just a slow process for us, and we ended up here in North Carolina, kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
After we left South Carolina, didn't want to be here. I had just beat cancer.
Yep.
Like, this is the moment, right?
This is
the moment, right?
Yeah.
Nope. Still not the moment. We'd still me and Naomi would find ourselves partying. Okay. I'm still, I've still got anger issues.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to find a church. We would end up finding one 5 minutes away from the house that wasn't just a good fit for us. And she Googled REVO. Or Facebook found REVO or whatever it was at North Campus. And I'm like, whatever, man, this place looks like a library. And it was next to a library in Rural Hall. So
essentially was a library.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's what it looked like. And I'm like, this is going to suck, man. And we went in there, and for the first time ever, Jamie, I found myself listening to a sermon and really listening, engaged. And I was like, wow, I think we finally found a church, man.
Yeah.
I think we finally found a church.
So walk us through that next part. So you find REVO, you find a church that you're enjoying. Now Naomi's a believer. You have all this knowledge about Jesus, but I think even to your own admission, it was more like the head knowledge than it was the actual submission to Jesus.
Yeah.
And so walk us through that next part. Where at what stage did you go from, man, I have this knowledge about God because of Christian Catholic school, because growing up in the Catholic system, the Catholic Church, through these different interactions with people, like I have this knowledge, but when did that knowledge start actually turning into surrender?
Yeah. So let's be straight here real quick. Like, Naomi always she was always very strong in her faith. Like, even to today, she knows more.
Yeah.
I mean, she's forgotten more than I'll ever know in that Bible, man. She, so knowledgeable, and always wanted me at church. And, I mean, even at first at REVO, it's almost like I was doing it more for her.
Yeah.
And God just slowly worked on me, man. He slowly worked on me at REVO North. And all of a sudden, here I am singing in church. Like, and I don't even mean on stage, man. I mean, just like I was
in the crowd,
stoically in the congregation, standing there stoically, looking around, and people are raising their hands, and I'm like, this place is freaking weird.
This is weird.
This is not like, why are that lady's hands raised over there? This is nuts.
Yeah.
And God just worked on me slowly, and then all of a sudden I'm singing. And where's the moment, Jamie? Where's the pivotal moment? I still don't really know, because it was just such a slow moving process for me. And then Grace shows up at North Campus, and she's up on stage a couple of weeks after she'd been there, maybe. I don't know how long she'd been there. And she's asking for people to join the worship team. And Naomi's like elbowing me about as hard as I can take a hit to the shoulder. She's like, you could be up there. Yeah. You could be up there, and it's just one more thing that, like, God checked off. Like, okay, Steve Maneen, I mean, God, he's like a pool player. I'm telling you, like a pool player for like our little league, they can play on so many different teams. And like, I'm telling you, he was a pool player for me, and he just kept working on me, and he put things in motion that needed to get put in motion. Yeah. And that was one more thing. Okay. Steve Maneen. Now he's going to volunteer on the worship team. That's good stuff. Yeah. So now you start following Jesus. You're accepting that surrender, right? Now the knowledge is turning into surrender. You're saying, okay, God, I'm going to start following you. Yep. Okay, God, I'm not going to church because Naomi's dragging me to church. I'm going to church because
I'm having community and I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm going to church because I want to worship you.
Yep.
You start saying, okay, now, well, maybe I can sing.
Yep.
Karaoke Steve can sing.
Karaoke Steve.
And so now you start coming and you're like, God, I am going to serve. I am going to give my all to you. So what were some things when you started actively, I say surrendering. I really like that phrase when we talk about following Jesus, because it really is a surrender. We are called in the book of Matthew, we're told to pick up our cross, to die to ourselves and to follow him. Mm-hmm. And so, the Christian life is one of surrender. And so what were some things that when you started actively surrendering to God, you started actively saying, hey, I'm not going to church because of Naomi, I'm going to church for God.
Yep.
What were some things where you started to notice, hey, God is starting to change some things in my life?
Yeah, sure. So, I had still, I don't want to call it a drinking problem, but I know that it was super uncomfortable for Naomi so many times. The drinking, numerous conversations. Yeah. Like, you drink too much and you get mean. Like, you get mean. And I know you don't mean to be that way, but you are that way. Anger with the kids. Yeah. Frustration with the kids. And just a temper that didn't match the situation that was actually going on. Yeah. It's like you shouldn't really be getting that angry over, ABC, XYZ, whatever it is. You shouldn't be that way.
The anger should be a 5 and you're at a 7 or a 9.
Or 10. Yeah. Or 10 too often. Like swearing at your kids, man. Yeah. Come on, like what are you doing? And right back to the P word, this has got to go away. There's no satisfaction in this. And if you're going to, like you were saying, surrender, if you're going to surrender, how are you going to surrender? Like, you've got to make steps. You've got to take steps to give it up, And so there was a lot of repentance, and there was a lot of, I don't even forget praying, begging God to take that from me, to take that lust from me, to take the anger from me. And, it didn't flip like a switch, Jamie, it was a slow process, but like basically every time I'd screw up, I was basically slapping God in the face. Yeah. So it ended up being easier for me than for most people, I think. Cause it wasn't a super long process, but I overcame it, and the anger and the frustration and the yelling, those are more steps that were taken that have gone in a super positive direction. Yeah. My kids might probably still be like, no, Dad, you still get angry. But I will tell you right now, Steve Maneen of 2020, 2021, if you actually ask them, give me an honest answer, I'm pretty sure they'll tell you, yeah, he's a lot different. And like, I didn't do that. Yeah. Like, I didn't do that, man. Like, God did that. God is that work in me.
So I think something that is really interesting when I love sitting down and talking about people's stories. One thing that has always been interesting to me is hearing, anytime I'll talk to someone, there's always been like that person that has helped. That person that, helped me in my walk, or that person that, man, I was struggling watching videos online, and then I started praying and begging the Lord. And then I found this person that walked with me, or, man, I was struggling in this area of my life. And then I started walking with this guy or this girl or this couple, and they helped. So was there anyone in your walk that really was able to come around and like help build you up?
Outside of Jesus, I assume we're asking, right? Yeah.
Hopefully Jesus.
Yeah. Cause he was there. So, first and foremost, and, I already said it, like, Naomi was put in my way by God to save my life. Like 100%, like absolutely, Naomi. Wes, former pastor at North Campus. He was constantly there for me. And Grace at North Campus. I mean, those three, in the beginning walks, and then, just finding community, that was a big reason why I don't have anybody from the past, outside of like family and stuff constantly there for me. But in terms of like walk with Christ and stuff like that, we didn't have community until we got to REVO. Yeah. That's where community finally happened, and quite honestly, I don't know that we wanted it. Yeah. You know, I mean, oh, hey, we found a church in Florida. They do like 4,000 people per Sunday. They've got 8 cops directing traffic.
Yeah.
Like, we were good there. We wanted to go in and get our God and get out of there because that's good enough, right?
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, you slowly realize it's not. So,
yeah, I think that's something a lot of people miss, is they think that, man, it's consumerism.
yeah.
It's, in a lot of ways, I think church has turned into some level of consumerism, where I'm going to walk in the doors and you're going to give me Jesus, and then I'm going to walk out the doors and my needs will be satisfied.
Sunday's done and everything's going to be good the rest of the week, right?
Yeah, Sunday's done and I'm good to go. But what I think we've missed is the fact that that's not actually at all what it's supposed to be. We are told in the book of Galatians that we are to bear one another's burdens.
Yep.
And so, you know, you talking about that, man, you started noticing, like, Naomi's bearing these burdens. Wes is bearing these burdens. Grace is starting to bear these burdens and help me shoulder this load so that I can follow Jesus. Well, what I love about it is then, man, we're not called to just stop right there.
Yeah.
Jesus says that, hey, we are called to go and make disciples. And so at this moment, you've been being trained, you've been being built up. You've had people that have been in your life helping you work through anger, work through these issues.
Yeah.
So
it didn't stop there, man.
Yeah.
At Wes and Grace, like, we could keep going. I could give you 14 more names. Jordan, you know, Steven. I mean, Jacob Gray, John Holland. Like, I mean, anybody else that I'm missing, you know, sorry. This isn't an award speech, you know, and I got to thank the writers and everything. But, like, it's that's why when I finished with those 3, I talked about community. Like, you got to find yourself in community. Otherwise, you're done.
And so now, talk a little bit about how you were able to move to now start being that person for other people. Because you and Naomi have led our groups now, where y'all led 2 our groups on marriage. And I remember you texting me saying, man, like, after reading this study, you were like, I feel like I need to text my ex-wife who cheated on me and apologize.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if that book is that powerful, send it my way. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And so now walk us through a little bit about how you've been able to take, like, your struggles, your sin, the things that you were actively fighting against, and you found Jesus and you were following him, and you've been able to beat some of these things or curb some of these things, or, you know, follow him closer. Well, now, how are some ways that you've been able to help other people do that?
Well, I think having other people around you helps hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Number one. So if you're being held accountable, other people want to hold you accountable too.
Yeah.
But having those groups, and, like, you know, if you would have asked me 3 or 4 years ago if we would have even been a part of our group, I would have told you to go pound sand, you know, like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We don't do our groups. We don't do Bible study. No, absolutely not. But, you know, Barrett, when he was at Walkertown, was like, hey, do you want to host? And I'm like, all right, yeah, sure, we'll host. And it was just again, another slow, not a pivotal thing, Jamie, but a slow movement. And then, like I said, I read that book and I was like, man, like, if there's one R group that I haven't seen, it's I haven't seen a marriage R group. Like, I remember Michael did one a couple years back on a marriage one, but that was the only time I ever recall. Yeah. Doesn't mean that there wasn't one, just that I recall.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, you know, hon, I think, you know, Naomi, hon, I think we need to lead and host this group.
Yeah.
I think this would be good for other people. And listen, we don't have it. We ain't perfect, you know, we don't have it right. But there was a lot of stuff in that book that, I read that stuff and I'm like, holy cow, like, I had it so wrong all those years ago in my first marriage, and I still have so many things wrong now. But again, it's God constantly working on us.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think, you know, that's the idea of, like, seeing a need and then going and doing it, seeing the need that you had, and then going and meeting it for other people. I think that's something, like, for me personally, that's something that I'm praying for, is that people would, you know, really catch that vision and say, man, like, if God's doing that for my life, maybe he's calling me to help other people. Like, maybe he's saying, if God's telling me this, maybe he's telling me this not so that I know it, but so that I can go and do it.
Right.
And I think that's so pivotal, man. And And so you're saying like, I don't think I have these big moments. And I'm sitting here like, Steve, you don't have these big moments because God throughout every situation has been moving and working and pushing you farther. And you're like, I would have never joined in our group. And yet you hosted a group that then led you to lead a group. Like I would have never have worshiped on Sunday, except for the fact that I started going to these churches and seeing, man, I like this, but I don't like this. I'm at this service, but man, like that worship is not the worship that's true worship. And then you start coming to REVO and you start singing out loud, and then people hear you and are like, wait, maybe God's giving you a gift for that. And you started identifying these things. And so I'm like, you would say you don't have a big moment. And I would push back and say, because every one of your moments was a big moment.
Oh, okay.
Every one of those moments is God working and moving. And so now like there's 7,000 different things you could break down in your story. And honestly, I would encourage you, if you watch this, to message Steve. You can get his email. It's on the website, steve@discoverrevo. You shoot him an email and ask him more in detail, because I know he'd love to share, and he'd love to tell you how he's did these things. He'd love to tell you how God has moved in these different areas. If you're struggling with different aspects, he'd love to tell you. But man, I would love for, as we close, you to just, man, I know there's someone that's watching this podcast right now that maybe they're in a similar situation to where you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
A similar situation where they know God, you know, they have knowledge, but like if they're going to church, it's because they're drug. If they're doing this, it's not because they want to, it's because they feel like they have to. So I would love for you to just take a second and just, man, something you wish you would have known, something that you wish could have been shared with you.
Wow. I'll tell you what, if I could go back and just shake, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30 year old Steve and just let him know how wrong he's got it all.
Yeah.
If I could go back and talk to that younger version of me, man, I'd have so many things to say, just how you're doing things wrong with your kids, how you're doing things wrong with your temper, how you're doing things like you're trying to find satisfaction in things that are unpure. And the only satisfaction is in Jesus and Jesus alone.
That's good.
That's where it's at. And like those things that are not of God, they can be beaten, and they can be beaten with church community. They can be beaten by being honest with your spouse, being honest with your children. And listen, there's times where my temper's not perfect. It's not fixed. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's not fixed, but to be able to surrender that to Jesus and just pray to him and repent to him and know that he's got the grace and he's got the mercy on you and he's going to see you through it. I know that that's available.
Yeah.
And if somebody is in need of that out there and they want more specific details, because boy, oh boy, like this could have been a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah, easily.
Jame, I'm trying to cliff note the heck out of this, and there's so many more details that can be shared. And I would share it with anyone that wants to know. Like, I'm not ashamed of anything.
Yeah.
I'd share it with anyone, and I'd let them know that the same grace and mercy that has been given to me through that surrender can be given to them too.
That's so good.
Yeah,
I think for myself, when I got saved, I didn't grow up in Catholic church, but I did grow up going to a church. And so I'd gained some knowledge about God, and I had gained enough knowledge to think that I knew enough.
Yep.
And it wasn't until my junior year of high school, senior year, where I was at a summer camp and the guy started sharing about Jesus. And he talked about how we don't have to, I had always thought that you had to be perfect. I always thought that we had to be good and then God would save us.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until that summer camp where the pastor shared, and he was like, it doesn't matter how bad you are, God loves you anyways.
Not the case.
God sent Jesus anyways. And for me, that was that moment where I'm like, wow. And so like, I'm thinking through and I'm like, is that not the same story?
Mm-hmm.
Of no matter where we're at, no matter what happens in life, no matter our situation, God still loves us.
Yep.
God still sent Jesus for us. So man, like I appreciate you being on and
Yeah,
sharing.
man. Thanks for having me.
And like I said, I encourage everyone to reach out to Steve because, man, his stories are powerful. They are life changing. It's quite literally life changed. And so I encourage you to reach out to him and see and hear more about it. But hey, this has been the REVO Church podcast. Thanks for joining us. And if you're curious, we'll be back next week. Peace.